Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So, welcome. I have just picked up a 10-minute rapid against somebody rated 737. Okay, get down. This daughter's dog is staying with us today. Okay. Yeah. So the guys just said in the chat, "Teach me." So I'm gonna give him the link to the channel. Okay. Okay, there we go. Look out for the video here later. Right, so I'm playing the London here because opponent's a lot lower rated. Okay, so this is the Jabava London version. I'm not very familiar with it, but I know it can be quite aggressive. I mean, there's an immediate danger here of the knight coming straight into the c7 square. In fact, I can play my knight right here, right now, which is interesting. But the point of this video is to start to introduce an idea that somebody contacted me. In the chat to say, could we, if I chuck you a few dollars, could we have a game? And then you can kind of coach me on the game. So what I thought was, well, why don't we do it so that I could allow rather than like a one-to-one lesson, which I currently charge $29 for, we could just book a time for a 15+10. So I'll book an hour out. We do a 15+10. I make a video out of it. The video goes on my channel, and then what I'm doing is I'm trying to coach the player here. Okay, so what we have here, this is for Jaidityak, right? An early pawn move. And it's a prophylactic move, trying to stop the bishop going to this square. I don't think this move is very accurate. And the reason is because we are in the opening, and you're supposed to be getting your stuff out into the board. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on. I'm going to develop. Notice I now have 3 pieces developed, whereas opponent has spent 3 moves moving pawns and 1 move developing a piece, right? I've moved 2 pawns, which is enough. So after the first move, I could get my bishop out, right? Then second pawn move, and now my other bishop can come out. So I'm going to put this bishop on the d3 square, like you do in the London. And again, look here, a6 now. This is pawn move number 4. So what he hasn't done with these last 2 moves is he hasn't got his knights out, or this bishop out, for example, which he really, really should do now. I think bishop b4 makes a lot of sense here. c5 is a good pawn move very often against the London. Okay, so there we go. We have face off with the bishops. Now, I could drop my bishop down to g3. That is the classic recommended idea in the London. However, I ain't going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to develop my queen. So now look, I'm ready to castle, right? And you know you've completed development when your rooks are looking at each other, when they're defending each other. So you've connected your rooks. Opponent is a long way away. He's got to move his bishop, he's got to move his queen, he's got to move his knight, and then castle. So that's 4 moves away from completing development. Okay, that's one of them, right? But now I'm actually in a position to castle my king and think about going on the offensive. So the big question is, what are we going to do? Could move my knight in. This is all fine. But no, let's just castle and let's play in a principled manner. Again, I'm still not worried about this. Yes, I'll be capturing away from the center, but look at what I've got. Right, I've completed development on move 8, right, which is the quickest that you can do it. If we go back to the beginning, just look at the white pieces. Okay, so you've got to make 1 pawn move. Okay, so we'll start again. Right, 1 pawn move, minor piece out, another minor piece, another pawn move. So you've got to make 2. You've got to move 1 pawn for each bishop. Okay, and another knight minor piece, and another minor piece, and the queen, and castle. Move 8, that's the quickest that you can castle. Okay, so he's taken here. I'm going to capture. And now I've actually got very, very good control over the e5 square, if you'll notice. So I can stick my knight into this square at any time. If he takes, I'll recapture with my spare e-pawn. Well, f-pawn that was an e-pawn. Okay, and then I've repaired my pawn structure. I'm attacking this knight, so he's going to have to burn a move to move it. So I think this could be quite a useful thing. You know, just to say, you know, just like $10 or whatever. We'll book a game in. We'll play a game. So let me know what you think in the chat. Whether you think that would be a helpful idea. Okay, now here and now. Notice he cannot take. He cannot take the knight. Why not? Because I recapture with a pawn, and that's a pawn fork on queen and knight. So he must not do that. Hello, Skylar. Hello, baby. Coming up. And say hello to the boys and girls. Come on up. Come on then. Nope. Yeah. We've been out for a walk this morning with our 6 dogs, and oh, look at that. It appears that I hung a pawn. It's true. Yeah, the 2 defenders of this pawn were that pawn and that knight. Okay, so with this, one of them has moved away, and now, excellent move. Really, really good move. Okay, so I can't go here or here or here with my queen. So this looks fine. That was just clumsy on my part. Okay, so from Black's point of view, let's look at this board here from Black's perspective. Okay, he wants to castle. He can technically castle either side, but actually having pushed these pawns up the edges is already a slight weakness. This knight in his half of the board is going to be unpleasant. The bishop's going to want to come out, and it looks as though it's going to have to come out somewhere like there. Okay, so now c5 comes, and that is definitely a useful move. Okay, so what are we thinking about? Okay, he's not castled yet. I've completed development. Am I worried about this move? No. So let us progress. So g4. What I want to do now is with the move c7 to c5, I am not expecting that king to go long. If Black is going to castle, he's going to be castling short. Therefore, let us start to apply pressure on the king side. Okay, I've already castled long, so we could well end up with an opposite coloured castling, opposite side castling situation. Here, if knight takes, I can recapture. That's okay. So let's do it. Got to watch my time as well, of course. But it's an unrated game. So opponent has now got a knight in my side of the board, and it's in the centre as well. So that was a very, very helpful move from his perspective. And with the move c5, he's now defended his knight. Now I could choose to try and swap the knight off. If I take, pawn takes, queen takes, that's better for me. If knight takes, I can take back with bishop or queen. So that might be an idea. But then if I do that, and then imagine he pushes his c-pawn now to c4, then my bishop actually has nowhere to go. So I would actually potentially allow my opponent to trap my piece. Right now my bishop can come all the way back here. Okay, so here, I'm not worried about this still. Right. Problem now with this is, no, I'd imagine he's going to push this, right? But again, it's another pawn move. Again, he hasn't completed development, and particularly, he hasn't got his king to safety. So what does this mean for us? I think it means that I can push ahead with my evil plans. Yeah, my knight defends this pawn, that's fine. So the plan is kind of push here, just try and open things up, right? Very, very common to make too many pawn moves at the sub 1000 level, and also to neglect development. You get overexcited about a particular possible idea. Okay, I can't hit that. I'm going to come around knight to e2 anyway, because that was already a plan, and now my opponent has just, with his overambitious pawn play, it's just prompted me to roll out a plan that I already had in mind of swapping off this very good advanced knight, right? I think a key thing for black here is actually to keep this knight where it is. So my default idea now is going to be g5, takes. If takes, and that's very risky now for black, because if this bishop comes off the back rank and I have a rook here, it's a very common skewer, and you can end up losing your other rook. Okay, the knight has run off. And now we do have to be a bit careful about this move, don't we? Yeah? Let's see, what else do we have on the board? Okay. So I think knight here is definitely possible. So my concern is the move c4 coming. So I need to move a bit quicker now. Could even push here, takes. But this is the key thing. And also, another just generally good idea, get a rook opposite your opponent's king. Okay, I'm going to have to play a bit quicker now, because I'm down to 3 minutes 36 and there's no increment on this game. So we would actually be doing, if we're going to do an hour, I'd do like maybe even a 15 plus 30, something like that. Or a 15-15. We'll see. But yeah, let me know if you think that's a good idea. So look where this knight was. And he's now undeveloped it all the way back to c7. Where it's not really, here it was a pain. Where it is now, it's not, I'm not too bothered. So I'm a pawn down, but key imbalances, king in the center of the board, queen and rook both lined up against that king. What I want to do is I want to get rid of that pawn. It's the only black piece on the e-file. Okay, if I can get rid of this pawn, my queen defends this knight. If this pawn moves, could be trouble. Right, for example, knight g6 wins the rook. Wins the exchange at the very least. Alright. Knight in here now, hits the rook. Now that rook, if it moves, that's no more castling for black on the king side. Is he going to castle queen side? I doubt it. Okay, so he's got two problems now. Okay, now my knight is fairly safe there. I could always push this, but let's take out this pawn. He's got three pieces looking at that pawn. Okay, so this is fine. So now, for example, here, I'm threatening the bishop. Can I hit the bishop with a knight? This is one thing you should, sorry, with a pawn. Yes, I can, potentially. f4, f5. Okay, I have a pinned piece. It's in an absolute pin. Cannot move. Can you attack it with a pawn is the first thing you should think of. So this is all fine. King should take now. Get out of the pin. Don't take with the rook. No. And now the bishop is lost. Yeah, so it should have taken that. Okay, this is a very clear threat here. Right? Why did my pawn move to f4? Always ask that question. What is my opponent thinking? And now the bishop is lost. Yeah, a rook's going to come to e8, but that's not a problem. Okay. So, we are up in material. I think it's time to get a knight, improve this knight, get it back towards the center. Looks nice. My queen can also come into a7. That's a very aggressive square. Okay, now she can't go to a7, but she can go here. And look at the lack of defense around the king. That's because my opponent left it until too late in the day to castle. Okay, free pawn with check here. It's going to be queen blocks, I think. And I'm only 2 pawns up, but notice the queen is also the only attacker of this. So if king here, for example, that... I'm attacking this. And that drops the knight. Yeah, the king actually had to just keep dancing. Welcome to the world of guest dogs. What happened? Is it a cat? Yeah? Not impressed cat. Okay, +5 materials now. And opponent keeps pushing pawns. So let's have a look what we've got. I see a tactic. Simple tactic. Knight d6. Okay, it's a fork on queen and rook. The only way to get out of it is rook takes. That just gives up an exchange. I would then be up 1 full rook. And we're in a very happy position. What we'll do then, at the end of this game, I'm going to rewind. Okay, there we go. So, and that comes with check as well. He can block with queen or rook. If queen, I'll trade off. I'd like to play this and attack, so I'm thinking maybe rook h to f1 first. Well, definitely now. Definitely now. Because king and queen are now on the same diagonal. Right, does my opponent pick up on it? Possibly. Okay, I can now win a pawn with check. Why not? Opening up more lines on the board. Okay. Let's win another pawn. This is now comes with an attack on the rook. I'm sure he'll spot that. Looks like he's trying pretty well in this game. There we go. Now this doesn't really work. Also, my rooks are a bit static. My rook can't come to here. So now I'm just going to move my queen for now. I think I need to open up my rook. So maybe like rook to d8 and then here to force the trade-off. I'm up a whole rook and a bishop and a pawn. But I am, it has to be said, under a little time pressure. Okay, so rook here. This is the general plan, get the queens off the board. Queens off the board, then it becomes a much more of a formality. All right, so check with the bishop. I have queen here as well. Okay, and let's force the trade of queens. Yeah, this queen was in an absolute pin, so now I can get the queens off the board. Whichever piece takes, I can play this. Rook can't block because it's attacked twice, that square. Okay. Okay, let's double up the rooks. He's got a minute 30, I'm under a minute now. And we have nice control over check. Now, of course, he can't come to any of these squares. Maybe I should have done this first. Here, he has to go here now. And I think that's checkmate. Yep. Wow. Good game. Okay, now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the start of the game. I'm going to flip the board, and then I'm going to go through black's moves, and I'm going to say, just completely off the top of my head, what would I play in this situation? Okay, so d4. Okay, well, I play a funky opening here, but d4, d5, perfectly good. In fact, we'll also check what the computer says here as well. The computer likes knight f6 or d5 or e6, all good. All good. Okay. Computer says e3 for white here. But this is all fine. Okay. Now, against the London, I mean, the early c5 is a spicy approach. I'd imagine knight f6, so yeah. And bishop b5, the kind of copycat version. But what you need to be thinking about is how am I going to get my pieces out now? We've moved the d pawn. So one of these two light squared pawns has to move to allow this guy out, And by the same token, on the other side of the board, one of these dark squared pawns has to move to allow this guy out. Okay, so you played knight f6, very good move. Right, I develop. Okay, now knight c6 is absolutely fine. Again, getting this bishop out, because the thing is, this pawn isn't going to go to e5 in a hurry, because that square is attacked twice, so the pawn would just be lost instantly if it moved that far forward. So you want to think, well, what's the future for this bishop? Now, so you look at this diagonal, and then you consider this diagonal as well. So I think the most obvious answer is bishop here to f5, and then you shut the door by playing e6, then giving yourself a little pawn structure there, little pawn chain. Bishop here is good. It can always drop back here where it's defended twice. Very solid. Also looking at a slight weakness on the form of the c pawn there. So the computer says actually e6 now, right? Or bishop f5. Bishop f5 equally good. And the third option is c5, like we said. c5, this idea of distracting the central pawns away from the two central files, right? The center of the board is this. It's the most important part of the board. So c5, very typical idea against the London. Okay, so e6 actually, jolly good move here. Right, I push my pawn forwards. Computer's actually saying a3 here. So I criticize black for pushing these moves, but right now there's a bishop pin is on since e6 was played, because now the bishop can get out through e7, right? So the computer actually says this, quite interesting. I wouldn't be too worried about that pin. Also e3 is the second best move, or equally good actually, and that's what I played. Now what would I do here? Again, it's going to be the same stuff, isn't it? So bishop b4 with a pin, okay? Bishop d6, very, very typical idea in the London. Either push this bishop backwards, which costs white a tempo, costs white time, or they trade off, in which case you can recapture with the c pawn or with the queen as well. Opponent here plays h6, and so it's just gone from ever so slightly in black's favour to ever so slightly in white's favour. So it's not a bad move, but what it isn't doing, like we said, he hasn't developed any of these minor pieces, which need to get off the back rank so that this guy can find safety. Okay? Shut up! Okay, I develop a knight. And now it's very, very even here. The computer says, again, bishop b4 with a pin. Again, actually a6. a6 is the move that was played, interestingly. And that is equal. That's really fascinating. But then that's stockfish as well for you. Okay, so computer's saying bishop e2 is a good move for me, and the immediate knight e5. It's often a move you look for in the London. And again, pawn to a3 to prevent the bishop coming out to this square, which is where it really wants to come. Okay, so I develop there. Now it's saying c5 for black. Best move. That's not the absolute best. Okay, and here it's saying white should castle or bring the knight back to e2. Interesting one. Okay, I play my queen out, and now it's saying you've got to push c5. c5, think about control of the center. Okay, right now white's got very good control over this square with two pieces looking at it, here with three pieces looking at it. Okay, here I've got the knight looking at it. Try and get rid of the pawn. Don't worry about that. I mean, look, you can do this. If they take, you take again. And then look, black ends up with 2 pawns on the 2 middle files. White only has 1 on the e file. So c5, it's saying, has to be played here. It's black's best move. Okay, we have knight c6, and the problem with this move is it prevents c5 as well. Okay, and here castles. Now black should castle, right? You've cleared the way, get the king to safety, and then think about attacking. Because okay, but what we have is we have the trade of bishops, and then the queen comes up here. Not a bad move. Then I think about getting the bishop out and then where to put the king. And then we think about how to attack. Right? White has already played his hand here. White is already long castled. So we need to be thinking about, well, why not short castle now and then start throwing these pawns at him? Opposite side castling, it's pawn storm time. Alright, so knight comes in now, and this is a blunder because of, well, it's a mistake, because of this. Black finds it, which is an excellent move. Well done. Okay, queen e3, best move. And now, again, c5. Please play c5. It's like so keen to push a lot of pawns. c5 is good. Knight to c6. So knight back here is good. And the alternative, knight b5. Which looks weird, because it looks like, you know, you lose a pawn. And we have finally c5. Very good move, actually. Like I say. So we're controlling a lot of space now towards this king. And we're also obviously protecting the knight on that square. So excellent move. White plays g4. It's saying h4 is best. Then king b1, then g4. So g4 is a good move. And here, I'm slightly dubious. I would probably castle. So what's it say? Knight d7. So this is actually the same maneuver from black's side that I was thinking, right? So I was thinking about this move to eradicate this knight that's in my half of the pitch. I want to get rid of that knight. It's controlling too many sensitive squares, right, around my stuff. I don't want that. There's like 4 very important squares deep in my half, but my knight is doing the same thing. So the computer's saying, knight back round to here and force that horsey away. Equally good as well is knight c6, bringing this guy back now and then using the pawns, maybe, to force a wedge into white's position. That makes a lot of sense. And then finally b5. So the computer says that's actually a very good move. Very reasonable move. I push a pawn. Black is better. Black is negative 1.4 here. And what it's saying is push on with b4, which is exactly what we get. Okay, knight e2. Only move, really. And now, computer says again, bringing the knight back. In fact, doesn't he play this? I think he plays knight b5. Knight c6 is best. Knight takes e2 is next best. And we have the knight coming back there. But this is actually a mistake. I mean, I could take there, but I don't think so. The computer's saying g5 is best here and rook h to g1. So I now swing my knight around, inaccurate from my point of view. Queen c7 here, lining up the queen with the king. Okay, remember I've got a queen lined up with your king. You haven't. Bishop b7 also a very decent move. Knight comes all the way back, and that is not good. And that knight did a lot of work to get into the middle of the board here. Why just rotate it all the way back here? And why haven't you castled? Having said that, these pawns are starting to look a bit ominous on the king side there. Okay, computer doesn't like this move. It was saying g5 is critical now. Best move by far. Doesn't like that. Okay, push there, and now knight to f5 is a real threat. Knight to f5 hits the queen, and also, I missed that actually. So there's a fork here, so this would have actually forced the queen back to f8. So if my knight's on here, it's also looking at that with check. I missed that. I dropped my bishop back. So this was an opportunity. The tactic here is a counterattack. Okay, you attack my bishop, I see it. But I can raise the stakes by playing knight f5 and hitting your queen, forcing your queen back. Okay, so again, equal, fine margins. Knight h7, blunder. So what would I play in this situation? Bishop, that's also playable. Yeah, getting the king safe even. The computer here says for black, again, knight d7. Eradicate this guy, right? We have an infiltrator. We have an intruder in our camp. Get rid of him. He's a danger. He's a big threat. Get rid of that knight. But instead what you've done is you've got rid of your own knight. You're bringing your own pieces backwards instead. What's the computer say? g5, best move. I don't play it. I play that. And now castles. Nope. Doesn't do it. Another mistake, hitting the knight. And now, this barrage is starting to loom quite heavily. Right? I'm kicking... what you're doing is you're kicking my knight away. My knight now comes into your territory. Rook moves. Pawn takes. You have to take with the bishop. And now knight to f5, hitting the queen, taking advantage of the absolute pin on the bishop. No, I don't do that. And again, almost equal. You see how the game, it doesn't... The game, all games swing backwards and forwards like this. It's really fascinating. Yeah, but if I'd have been in my most aggressive mood, I might have found that. Okay, again the knight backwards. Why invest all this time moving your knights up the board? Notice that knights have got short arms, right? They are not long-range fighters. They're short-range fighters. So they're really strong in the center of the board. And if they can get to these squares, right? 6th rank, 7th rank, they become stronger, right? They become more monstrous the further up the board they get. Because knights are good, they can cover, as long as they're in this part of the board here, they can cover 8 squares at once, and they're very, very tricky characters, but not if they're on the back 2 ranks. So these knights are awful. Okay, so we take and take. White is now winning. f5 is the best move. f5 I play. Just attacking the pin piece, very classic. We win. Saying queen takes was actually better, but it's going south now for black. Saying I should play my knight there, or bishop takes c4. I play the knight there, best move. Now queen f4. But it's already +5 for white here. Queen f4 forces a trade. Queen drops back here, and we know how it ends up. So we don't really need to pick over the bones of that one. Yeah, now it's weaknesses, hanging pieces. This pawn's undefended, right? This pawn is undefended. It's a very tricky situation. And my king is nice and safe, right? I castled, and that was it. That's all my king's work done for the day. Right? And everything else was done by my pieces. My king was not involved in the battle. This king, on the other hand, look how exposed he is. Look how there's no pawns at home defending him. Yeah? So, the computer's saying many times, get that king to safety, tuck it in behind the pawns, also activate your other rook, and then go forwards towards your opponent. I think there were too many backwards knight moves in this game particularly. But like you could see, if we just look at the review quickly, and we'll see on the graph, black was in a good position at many points in that game. The lead kind of switched backwards and forwards. Maybe just need to be a bit more aggressive and think about, okay, look, I've got a piece up front, and a knight in your opponent's half is a good thing. So always think, do I have to move this now? Do I have to retreat this now? And maybe not is the answer a lot of the time. So don't do anything you don't really have to do. Or don't do something unless you have to do it, or if it genuinely improves your position. We'll see what the machine says on this. And because I'm on the beta program as well, in fact, I'll show you guys this as well. Right? 72 for me. Look, string of mistakes, okay? So look at this, beta. You see that beta here? Click on that, and you can then join the beta from there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the study, the report. It just has to load it again. Yeah, because every time I show this, people go, how do you get that? I don't get that. I don't see it. Okay, so I'm playing like 1500. This is good. You know, that's a good rating estimate. 1120 for somebody rated under 1000. Definitely good idea. But yeah, I mean, look, there was the little period in the middle where black was a bit better, and obviously I missed a few opportunities here. But then again, you know, I gave the lead away, and I wasn't trying to be soft on you at all. Okay, but 2 blunders on black's part. One was this pawn coming forward. This leads to losing a bishop. Stockfish, what are you on about? What are you on about? Attack the queen. Stockfish makes it up as it goes along. It really does. Okay, so that's one blunder from black. The other one, yeah, I'm not... so I need to review as both, really, don't I? Reviewing as both now. Okay, and the other one was f6 here. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes, review. Let's look at best move difference. Yeah, shabby middle game by both players, actually. Very, very good and principled in the opening, actually. Middle game was generally poor, and the ending was generally quite a bit better. So the review, I think, should say that as well. Yeah. So opening, I was stronger. No, you were stronger. You were stronger. Middle game was not great on both sides, and we didn't really get into the ending because we finished with queen still on the board mostly. Did we? No, they just came off. But yeah, nice checkmate in the end. But yeah, I hope that's been useful. Hope you can pick up a few things from that, my new friend. So yeah, that's all I've really got to add for that. But yeah, guys, if you think that you would like to play me and have our game on the channel for your edification and improvement, then let me know in the comments. If people think it's generally a good idea, I might chuck up a $10 book a game link. Okay, I don't know if anyone's done that before. They probably do it on Patreon and stuff like that, and I'm sure other people do it. So yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching. See you soon.